G'day guys, Josh here. Well, we got a big announcement today from Season Discovery Phase 2, and so we've got a whole bunch of updates. Now, if you're watching my previous videos on what to expect and whatnot, well, you got a bit of a mixture, essentially. Now, as a preamble, if you don't want spoilers for Season Discovery, just click off now, or just kidding, since most of you guys are watching this video anyway, you want all the spoilers that you can get, okay? So let's get started. So what did we get? We got a new raid. We knew that already. We got a new PvP event in STV, the Blood Moon. We kind of expected the professions to only be boosted to 225. And we also got new rune slots as well. However, we're not sure whether the rune slots are going to be all of them. So rune slots going to be helm, braces, belt, or boots. And we also got some new runes for some legs. So we got Shadow Fiend and Commanding Shout, I believe, for legs. We've got quality of life changes for a lot of classes. Paladins and Druids are like this a lot. We also got some new recipes for professions, a new world buff for the new raid, and new policy against GDKP. So let's start with the first thing. So new raid is being Gnomeregan. So 6 bosses. Most likely is going to be Grubus, the Vicious Fallout, Executioner 6000, Crowd Pummeler, the Dark Eye Ambassador, the red boss in front of Femmerplug, and Femmerplug himself. Now, they have also said as well that Grubus has been moved. So be aware of that as well. Now, these guys have different loot. There are already some that's been released to the Wowhead, like the Crowd Pummeler with 50% attack speed, which is not given to warriors, funnily enough, as a 2-handed mace. There's also a new world buff from defeating Thermoplug. Assume you get some head or something like that you hand into wherever, and you get 4% crit strike on spells, 42 spell damage and healing, and also you get melee and range attack speed increased by 20%, as well as movement speed. You also can find the new profession materials here to create the new raid items. So there's a new PvP event called the Blood Moon. It's a free-for-all in STV. You can group up, but if you go into a raid group, you'll be punished. They haven't evaluated what sort of punishment you'll get, but there will be a punishment. We'll find out. It could probably be like, negative 99% health or something like that. I don't know. You can craft an epic item from the tokens you get from killing players, but it's unknown on how you craft it. You can only use one unless you're a hunter, because Hunter can use multiple different items, unfortunately. Everyone else can only use one item, really, for one spec. It's not limited as one blood item, but the stats on the item limits it, basically. It's just like Ashen Veil. Starts every 3 hours, so you can plan ahead, basically, to make sure you're there for the Blood Moon event. Professions are boosted to 225. I expected these to be boosted to potentially 300. I guess my professions, dreams are dashed. They want to save the specializations themselves for future phases. So basically the only ones that could be achieved during this phase was, I believe, Goblin Engineering and Armor Smithing. The others were just out of reach. So like Tribal Leatherworking, for example, was just out of reach, was needed 235. And also as well, apparently with the professions being boosted to 225, the new items from Gnomeregan, you'll need to work with other professions to get those items essentially. Well, I guess that's like kind of normal classic in a nutshell. However, the most recent update, items have been changed within the professions to make them more useful, especially for the golden scale set for both elemental shamans and shockadins, as they've converted all the spirit onto spell damage basically as well. So shockadins and elemental shamans receiving a huge boost here from the golden scale armor, and it allows like another pre-raid item entry level to get in there a lot quicker, because shamans and paladins don't really have enough options other than just basically taking cloth and leather gear. Now, another thing that's actually changed as well, which I didn't list in my opening slides as well, is that some of the dungeon items have also changed to make getting pre-raid bis or pre-raid gear a bit easier. So, for example, some of the items in SM, Razorfed Downs, and Alderman have actually changed to become either blues, which is Revelosh's entire loot set has become blues instead, and also to add spell damage on it as well. In particular, if you want to give some prime examples, Illusionary Rod, they've got rid of the spirit and put damage and healing on it. On Necrotic Rod, they've put damage and healing on it as well. They've put healing on the Triune Amulet as well. You can get further updates from Wowhead, but they're tweaking older items to make sure that they're useful in Season Discovery. The one thing that I've realized is that a lot of the Black Rifle Deep's gear would have been best in slot for Gnomeregan because there's spell damage on it, which is one of the strongest stats for most casters. There's also new rune slots for each classes, which will be new runes to Helm, Braces, Belts, and Boots. The next part of speculation, I believe we'll receive Belt and Boot runes this phase. I don't think we'll receive Helm and Bracelet runes this phase. I believe we'll receive that in phase 3 instead. Now there's 2 new runes, which is Warriors receive Commanding Shout to legs, and Priests receive Shadow Fiend to legs. Basically, same as the Wrath Lich King, but Commanding Shout is going to be more tied to Power Word Fortitude. Now, I'm a bit disappointed, but there's no hybrid runes now to really experiment, but more runes the better, I suppose. The new runes are like this, so this will be probably a long segment. We'll go through the runes. You got Blood Surge, Focus Rage, Precise Timing. Pretty much it's all gone like Fury, Arms, Protection. So Focus Rage will obviously be Protection. You get your Blood Surge, which is basically your arms, and you get Precise Timing, which also helps out with arms and Fury as well. They kind of intermix. The new runes for Boots for Warriors is Enrage Regen. You can only use it if you're in Rage, Berserker Rage, Blood Rage. You get 50% HP back over 10 seconds. You got your good old Intervene. Also intervenes, also a threat reduction now by 10% for the player intervened. And you also got Rallying Cry, which increases all brain members' max HP by 15%. We all know everyone's getting Rallying Cry. That's all I'm going to say, Warriors. You're getting Rallying Cry. You don't get to make decisions. Your raid makes them for you. New Paladin runes. Enlightened Judgments. Holy Pallies like this, but there's no Judgments of the Just this time. So I think it's more of a rep Paladin, so they don't have to get so much spell hit. Infusion of Light, basically Shock Guardians are back, which kind of sucks when you've got Enlightened Judgments on the other area where you get spell hit. And then last but not least is Sheath of Light. I'm just going to say I feel like Enlightening Judgments are going to be the ones that's peaked here. New runes for Paladin of Boots, you got Sacred Shield, exactly like Wrath of the Lich King. Art of War, melee crit strikes reset, Exorcism and Holy Strike cooldowns. Guided by the Light, which is basically Divine Play. Okay, that's pretty much it, except a bit more mana. Hunters, basically the aspect of the Viper, pretty much like BC. Exposed Weakness, basically like BC, except it's not a debuff on the boss. I believe there's a 40% agi to the Hunter. We've not confirmed that as of yet. And next up, we've got Melee Specialist, where basically they're introducing Survival Melee Hunter to Sod. So as you can see here as well, they're trying to also make sure as well that Raptor Strike is more beneficial as a dual wield spec. You can see this in the boot option where there's a dual wield spec, where it increases offhand weapon damage by 50%. Raptor Strike strikes with both weapons, and Raptor Strike does 30% bonus damage if the weapon is the same type. So if you have two Warblades of Takari, they do 30% extra damage, which is actually quite huge. And it's going to encourage hunters to dual wield if they're going to melee, basically. Invigoration is basically pets crits with special ability, like Wind Serpent crits with Serpent Breath. Not only does it do a ton of damage to the poor person getting hit by it, but it also gives a hunter 5% mana. Trap Launcher, traps can be launched for 40 yards, kind of like Totemic Protection. Fire and Frost have different cooldowns now, so the one here I could see is probably BM Invigoration. Marks, well, I assume you're going to have Trap Launcher at this stage, maybe Invigoration, but it's going to be quite crazy with this one as well. Survival is going to be Melee Specialist and Dual Wield, obviously, as well. I feel like the Melee spec, especially with Flanking Strikes in particular, is going to get a massive buff out of this, and I feel like Melee Hunter could really be a thing at the moment. It's also good to see that aspect of the Vipers come back, given the fact that Hunters, we have a lot of abilities that will use mana. Next up is Rogues. Poison Knife, I believe kind of same as Retail. Shiv as well, it was one combo point, poisons the target instantly. Shadow Step, basically like Wrath of the Lich King, 70% movement speed extra though, so kind of retail-esque. And Shuriken Toss is basically a ranged cleave attack that does 25% of your attack power. Master Subtlety, just like Wrath of the Lich King, and just like Retail, I believe. 10% damage after breaking self for 6 seconds. Waylay is a PvP talent, slows the target by 50% and 10% whatever. Rolling of the Punches is the typical tank rune. But rogues get 30% extra HP, which could be huge here for rogue tanking in particular. Rogue tanking had a bit of an issue with EHP, effective HP, and this is going to give them a fuck ton of it. Priests, Empowered Renew. Renew heals one more time when applied. Gains 50% extra benefit from healing bonus effects. And there's more, can be active with another Priest Renew. So this is actually a big issue that you can only have one Renew on a target. So if you had two Priests, they could clip renews. Mind Spike, which is basically kind of, you know, your combo points to a Mind Blast. You go Mind Spike, Mind Spike, Mind Spike, Mind Blast, 90% crit. Renewed Hope is that any targets with Weakened Soul, you have a 10% extra crit chance. I do not see that being used over Empowered Renewed, to be honest, but I can understand where its use could be. You have one person with Empowered Renewed, another person with Renewed Hope. Next up is the Priest Boots. Dispersion, just like Retail. Pain Suppression, just like, yeah, it is actually just like Retail. Pain Suppression, same as the current, but no threat reduction. That's a key one as well. So 40% damage mitigation, but no threat reduction. Spirit of Redeem is an interesting one. One of the newer runes is that requires Spirit of Redemption. You go into a state where you're immune, basically, and you can't move. And if you use it, there's no Spirit of Redemption upon dying. This lasts for 30 seconds, by the way. Next up is Shaman. So Shamans, they have a Fire Nova. So basically, your Fire Nova totem is gone. and your Fire Nova just emits from wherever your Fire Totem is. This combines well with Totemic Projection, which is a quality of life change coming up. So you can just basically put your Fire Totem in a boss and just spam Fire Nova basically as well. Maelstrom Weapon is same as Wrath Lich King. You have a chance to get 20% less cast time on your Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, your Lava Burst, any spell basically. Stacks up to 5 times. Pretty much you build this up and use it 100%. Power Surge, kind of like Flame Shock on retail. Wrath Lich King that, basically 5% chance for every tick of Flame Shock to reset Lava Burst, Chain Lightning, and so it's instant cast. New runes on boots, Ancestral Awakening. When you crit with a healing wave or lesser healing wave, the target with the lowest HP wise is healed for 50% of the amount. And Decoy Totem is basically grounding totem, effect for melee and range hits. Spirit of the Alpha just increases all threat generated by 45%. I know some of these slides are wrong, but listen to my voice basically as well. Well, not wrong, but not complete with information. I can only fit so much before basically it gets too big for the slide or gets too little for the screen. Next up is Mage. And Mage, I can say, is the most boringest fucking changes there is, okay? This is the least creative that Blizzard have been, because everything is just like Wrath Lich King or TBC, or basically a spell copy from TBC and just added on, okay? It's frustrating. I'm going to put that as that way as well, especially with the introduction of Spellfrost Bolt. And all of this is just basically Wrath Lich King or TBC talents, other than Chronostatic Preservation, which seems to be a potential healing living bomb, because it heals a target, 15 seconds later, it heals a target later. Could be a delayed hot or anything like that, or could be a living bomb. We haven't seen it go into effect yet. And I'm sorry, mages, but yeah, it is boring. I'm sorry. Next up, you got Warlocks. Warlocks have a 5% chance of you or your demon upon damage done to increase the other damages by 5%. I believe there's similar stuff in retail. Invocation. This is the one where if you refresh Corruption or anything like that with less than 6 seconds that you do, it does instant damage. This is mainly to help out Warlocks who always clip their dots, so it isn't so punishing anymore. Shadow and Flame basically means any crit increases your damage by 10%. So basically any fire or shadow damage increases your damage by 10%, given that Warlocks only deal that type of damage. Next up, you got the boots, Dance of the Wicked. When you crit, you gain dodge chance equal to your crit rating for you and your demon. Also, you gain 2% maximum mana. This is trying to prevent obviously mana demons from life tapping so much. You also get Demonic Knowledge, increase your spell damage by 10% of your demon's intellect and stam. And Shadow Flame, just like retail, little cone, has a dot. You can use Conflagration with it. Druid. Yeah, Druid's kind of boring too. Okay, Druid belt, you get Berserk. Kind of like retail. Your Mangle hits 3 targets in bear form, no cooldown. Cat form and cross reduced by 50%. You're immune to fear. Eclipse. And well, kind of like Wrath, where basically Starfire increases your crit chance of your next 2 Wraths by 30%. Wrath increases your crit chance of your next Starfire by 30%. All these effects stack up to 4 times. And you get 70% pushback resistance. Nourish, just like Wrath of the Lich King, except all the triggers from Healing Touch also benefit Nourish. Druids is sounding familiar, isn't it? Is basically Wrath of the Lich King talents. New runes for Druids with Boots. Dream State, 50% mana regen while casting. Increase nature damage dealt to the target by 20% for 12 seconds. So basically, when it's the triggers, you get 50% mana regen, and you increase damage to target by 20 seconds with all your nature damage. So just basically spam Wrath at this stage. King in the Jungle. Well, I haven't seen this talent before in Wrath Lich King. Tiger's Fury gives 60 energy, increases damage by 15%, and no longer on the GCD, as a 30-second cooldown instead. Survival Instincts. Geez, you've seen these ones before, haven't you? 30% extra HP for 20 seconds, and you, as a passive effect, you gain 5 rage, 10 energy, or 1% mana if you dodge, depending on what form you're in. So if you're in cat, you get energy. Bear, you get rage, and mana if you're in human form for any fucking stupid reason. Or boomkin form, of course. I guess boomkins can take these days, okay? They get a lot of armor. Quality of life changes. Paladins get longer blessings with 50% less mana costs and extra duration. Yeah, it's about 10 minutes. It's better. Trust me, it is a lot better watching a poor paladin have to buff like single buffs of wisdom for 5 minutes. Oh, that was pain. Druids get revive, hot stack, market wild duration increase, and mana cost decrease. This is actually huge, given that all druids and priests did, we'll get to priests later, that they just buffed twice and then sat down. That's pretty much all they did. I forgot to mention in the slide as well that mages get a same thing with arcane intellect as well. Mages had the same thing where they just buff 3 people and didn't have to drink. Warlocks can summon the all mentioned closet, the summoning closet, and soul shard farming is actually a lot easier. There's a passive that soul drain actually gains soul shards while channeling. Last but not least, priests get fortitude, duration increase, and mana cost decrease. Rogues get redirect, so you don't have rogues beating up on Myrmidons to buff, slice, and dust before hitting the boss. And Shamans get totemic projection, so they can put their fire totems anywhere and wind fury totems anywhere as well. And Sif not having a feral druid anyway. There are new recipes for the raid, so for basically every profession, every crafting profession in particular, which is tailoring, leatherworking, engineering, and blacksmithing, you get a new helmet. There's new consumables for enchanting, a sigil that gives 20 spell power and attack power for 30 minutes, which is limited to 225 enchanting. And alchemy gives a rejuvenation pot that gives 40 AP and 35 spell power for 15 seconds. The key opponent is that rejuvenation potion does not require alchemy on the tooltip at this stage. This could change. Last but not least, there's a policy against GDKPs. Running or advertising a GDKP is now a bannable offense. Blizzard believes this is why a lot of people buy gold to get guaranteed gear from these runs. They also think a lot of gold bought is distributed in these GDKPs. And also, as a personal pet peeve, those admin costs are so damn goddamn high. I've seen people charge 10% and 5%. I'm just like, bro, that's just ridiculous. Now, Gnomeregan better have fun mechanics. Otherwise, the lack of creativity in runes is really going to let it down. Gnomeregan has so many opportunities to have a lot of fun mechanics. I mean, engineering is probably one of the funner professions and whatnot. Hopefully, the bosses have additional mechanics that are difficult, but also fun at the same time. The PvP event looks great. You know, it basically means that someone can't get 40 people together and just basically steamroll their way through. Sometimes less is more. I gotta say with the runes, as I mentioned before, they lack some extreme creativity. All of them, or not all of them, lots of them are just copies from Wrath of Lich King, BC, and Retail. There are a few, obviously, original ones, which is mainly for like Mage healing, which only got one. Rogue tanking, they got one. Warlock tanking, which I don't think got any. And Shaman tanking also got one as well. But it just feels really lackluster. It just feels like they're just pasting Wrath of Lich King and BC talents into being like, hey, they're runes now, instead of actually taking the risk and going ahead of it like they did in the first phase, you know, Eternal Flame, Regeneration, Mass Regen, Rewind Time, all those toolkits that were given to tanks and whatnot, which is a bit unfortunate to see. I reckon a bit more risk and reward would be greater for Blizzard in Season of Discovery. Use it as a true experimental stage and see how everything plays out. However, maybe the true originality and creativity is that a lot of these Wrath of Lich King, BC, and Counter talents would have actually never been used together. So, and also not to mention as well, some of those talents would have been out of reach. So you can combine some talents together that normally were unachievable during their day in BC, Counter, and Wrath of Lich King. I think the main criticism I've got here is the Mage one, for example, because the Mages barely get anything new other than Healer Mage. I mean, everything that Mage gets is basically in Wrath of Lich King and BC, which is, yeah, I gotta say, like, you know, if you're a mage looking at it, you're just like, yay, I've just become a Wrath of Lich King mage. That's pretty much it. Professions, great to see those profession raid recipes. Also, the profession changes in blacksmithing to have more shockerdens and elemental shamans as well. Even though the elemental shamans have to wait till level 40 to be able to wear the mail, I still think it's a good pre-grade entry gear. I have been advocating for this quite a bit. Also, as well, to add on to this, the dungeon items have changed as well. This will make getting pre-grade bits a lot easier, entries a lot easier as well. I love how they did the changes for Alderman, Razorfen Downs, and SM, especially for Razorfen Downs and Alderman, given the fact that they're 41 to 51, and I think Razorfen Downs is 36 to 45. So it's really good to see that they've updated those dungeon gear because they know people are going to go for it. And I don't know, but I think the Season Discovery team is doing a really, really good job in that area to make sure that it's easy to get into those 10-man raids. Quality of life changes are huge, especially for every single class that buffs. I mean, easier buffing. Paladins especially, with the Blessings and Druids finally getting revived, it's pretty huge as well. I mean, it's going to make raid buffing a lot easier, and it's not going to be a tedious task where you spend, you know, a couple of minutes before pool to get everyone buffed up, basically. I'm a bit neutral on the GDKP action. I'm not sure how far it's going to end up. I'm not sure if it's going to stop gold buying or anything like that. We didn't have GDKP back in the old days, and somehow people still bought gold, but we'll see where it happens. We'll see if it decreases or increases activity. Anyways, guys, that's my opinion. That's all the video. That's the updates for phase 2, the previews, the little bit of summary. Hope you guys have a great day. See you guys later. Bye.